doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
We're going to continue our tour. We're going to go to Sweden right now. I'm going to call on Marcus. Marcus and I have been speaking for quite some time about the whole issue around risk mitigation, and he's doing some fantastic work there. So I'm really going to call on Marcus just to share some of his observations about asset owner risk mitigation innovations and initiatives, and which of those could potentially be applied to Africa or the African Green Infrastructure Investment Bank. Again, asking for his views on this, promised 100 billion, and then hopefully he'll just round off with sharing sort of 3 strategic asset owner-led type priority issues and initiatives or insights to make COP26 a success. The floor is yours, Marcus.
Great, thanks, Hubert, and thanks for inviting me and for creating such a good group of peers. I've been spending the last hour and a half nodding, and I could be very short, saying I agree with everything. Thank you. But let me touch upon a few things, just underline what others have said that I particularly agree with. I think is important. One is, there's a pretty big gap between the estimated financing gap for the SDGs for Africa or for low income, middle income countries, and the available supply of investable products at institutional investment scale. And I sit in a couple of different groups. We're discussing this, and we keep coming back to the issue of pipeline. And someone earlier on this call said, we also need to think about co-creating pipeline. And I think that is key. We need to think about aggregation techniques. I saw there was a question in the Q&A function about what about entrepreneurs and startups. So for us, it's very difficult to invest directly in a startup or an entrepreneur, but through aggregation techniques, we may get that kind of exposure. But aggregating things and thinking how we can create that pipeline, how we can make these things bankable, I think is absolute key to get to the scale, to get to the diversification that institutional investors need. Second, someone else said, the co-creation of solutions. I think that's also key. In the old world, someone raised a fund or a fund of funds and then traveled around the world and sold that fund. There's still a place for that, but increasingly, especially in infrastructure, we're talking about platforms. We're talking about asset owner-driven platforms. We go together with other peers, and again, I've heard a lot of institutions here today with various almost identical investment strategies that we have. Long-term, big focus on sustainability, and I assume we have very similar risk-return mandate. To go together and together with someone and such an institution as the Green Infrastructure Investment Bank that you're proposing, I think is great. Then we can create things. We're doing this in the Nordics together with other institutional funds here. We can very well do it in other geographies as well. I think this is an important way forward. Third, I think we have to be more innovative. When we have to, those two first point was about push ourselves. I think we also need to push some others. There's been quite a number of mentions of de-risking techniques, and there is a fairly big toolkit out there. First losses, guarantees, different tranches, and so on. I think these can be used, and these can be used at scale to find these innovative solutions. And in one of the prep talks, I told the others, I don't know how blunt I should be, but I think that there are quite a few public and semi-public institutions that could take on more risk. And to use a good example, I think the African Development Bank securitization room to run a couple of years ago was a great example. But they're very far apart. I think we need a lot more of that, and together I think we can also constructively push some of our domestic or international organizations also to be more constructive, take on more risk, and create these solutions so we can invest at scale. And I also think that within the scope of this roundtable, I think we have all the contacts. So it's not that we need to struggle to find the people that can create these deals. So I'm actually quite positive that we can actually make this happen sooner rather than later. Thanks.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.